Greetings, I be to Tony, our lecturer for the subject ADS656. Today, our group consists of Aaron, Rusdi, Sharifa, and myself, Estelita, will be presenting about the role of key performance indicators (KPI) in public sector accountability. As for the abstract, the aim of the study was to identify the issue of key performance indicator in managing the public sector accountability. The application of KPI is important because it will help to assist an organization in order to keep their focus on the key areas where job performance is crucial in achieving the goals of the organization. KPI was introduced in Malaysia as one of the management techniques that derives from the private sector. It is to establish a culture of performance in public agencies in order to improve public government efficiency. Implementing KPI in the public sector in Malaysia also allows data provision for the organization and helps to improve the allocation of human resources and the provision of public service. Organization practices different kinds of performance management system, either in public or private sector. Various key methods and movements are in place to enhance organization's performance. On top of all that, KPI are also the components of the plan that show what you want to achieve. A KPI is an evaluation of how an organization carries out its strategic vision. The term strategic vision refers to the integration of an interactive strategy into the strategic objectives of the organization. It is important that everyone involved in the strategy of the organization agrees on its significance and its interpretation of its differences. A mutual understanding of the importance, context, intended variations, and commitment of each indicator must be gained through their participation in any KPI project.
Now we're moving on to the literature review for the seminar paper. Basically, in this part, I will explain on the concept that been used in the seminar paper based on the article that we have found and observed that related to our topic of discussion. First, a study from IGI Global, in which we apply in defining the concept of NPM or New Public Management, whereas in its finding explain that NPM is a governance paradigm and a collection of management approaches for public administration that derive from private sector practices. And in terms of NPM in Malaysia, a study from J. Edwin and Mail 2015 states that NPM first acceptance is in the mid-1980s, whereas the establishment of NPM in Malaysia was seek to improve the efficiency, effectiveness and accountability in government organizational services. Hence, from the study we could understand that NPM was introduced in Malaysia to enhance efficiency, effectiveness and accountability. Therefore, the term of accountability is one of the main focuses by the government to be enhanced in the NPM agenda. So accountability is one of the main element focuses in this seminar paper topic. So basically, according to a study by Aziz, Rahman, Alam and Said, 2015, defines that the accountability is being compliant and meeting personal obligation, as well as feeling obligated to another person and having to justify one action to others, which means a person who have responsibility is obligated to be account for what action, decision or work that he or she has done. In the NPM agenda, the study from Parker and Gold 2000 states that in the NPM era, management in the public sector has evolved from administrators and custodians of resources to being accountable manager with more delegated authority. Therefore, we could see that in the NPM era, the public manager have been delegated more authority leads to higher accountability for the public manager. Now we're moving on to the performance measurement. Before we know how it related with accountability and NPM, first we must know what performance measurement is. According to a study by EWO 2011, explained that performance measurement in public sector basically a measurable data to analyze the effectiveness and outcome of government program on regular basis. Furthermore, in terms of performance measurement and accountability, a study from Anning 2018 explained that performance measurement could generate incentives that assist individuals align their goals with the organization objective, provide useful input on how to achieve the objective, and serve as foundation for internal and external accountability. Thus, we could see that performance measurement could enhance the accountability as it guides the public manager on how to achieve the objective to be efficient, effective and accountability in performing its tasks. In terms of Malaysia public sector, a study from Bakar, Saleh and Muhammad 2011 explained that since 1990, the government had made a lot of initiative in emphasizing the result of accountability. Total quality management, productivity improvement initiative, modified budgeting system, and also key performance indicator are some of the initiatives done in empowering the accountability in the NPM agenda using the performance measurement as a foundation of technique. As the study from Bakar, Saleh and Muhammad had explained that KPI is one of the initiatives done in empowering the accountability using the performance measurement method. Therefore, now we move to KPI establishment in Malaysia public sector. Basically, according to a study by Khalid 2008, states that KPI introduced was basically means to establish the performance-based culture in the public agency to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of the public administration could be enhanced, and this could be seen as aligned with the NPM agenda. Furthermore, as a result, a study by J. Edwin and Mail 2015 states that the implementation of KPI in Malaysia public sector, the system enables data provided to the head of the organization, and it contributes to better human resource allocation and improved public service delivery. Moreover, Khalid 2008 states that KPI are viewed as one of the methods for strengthening the public sector institutional and implementation capacity, which is one of the 9 Malaysia Plan strategic priorities. Hence, it could be seen that based on the related article that been mentioned, the KPI initiative that been introduced under the performance measurement strategy could enhance the accountability in the public sector and indirectly empower the new public management agenda. To put a clear context between all the concepts, here is the process mapping that shows the correlation between all the concepts that been mentioned, whereas briefly in the NPM agenda, it emphasizing on the empowerment of accountability in the public sector organization. To empower the accountability, one of the strategy applied is by measuring the performance of the public manager and public organization. To measure the performance, a KPI initiative was introduced as a guideline for measuring performance and empower accountability that indirectly could facilitate the NPM agenda. Now, moving on to methodologies. Basically, in order to find a related sources for our topic of discussion, various journal article has been observed and used in this seminar paper writing to ensure all the issue and problem could be identified well and to ensure a related solution and recommendation could be assessed. For example, a studies from Bakar, Saleh and Muhammad 2011, which is Enhancing Malaysia Public Sector Transparency and Accountability, Lesson and Issue, which is the finding we apply in Total Quality Management concept. Secondly, Fredrickson and Palas 2018, which is Implementation of Key Performance Indicator and the Issue of Occupational Stress in Malaysia, which is the finding we apply in KPI Performance in Malaysia. Third is Zahirawati, Nazmi and Hilmi 2012, which is Key Performance Indicator in the Public Sector, a study in Malaysia, which is the finding we apply in recommendation. These are some of the example, the journal that been observed and applied in the seminar paper.
Good afternoon everyone, I'm Sharifa and I will be presenting the issue of Key Performance Indicator KPI in Malaysia. The first issue is regarding the disclosure of informations. In order to enhance public confidence in the government accountability, KPI outcomes should be made public and treated as public papers that can be accessed for a low fee. Otherwise, the public will have the unjustified impressions that the government's vote is only rhetoric. So looking at the GLC cases or stand for government linked companies, KPI achievements of selected 20 GLC have been revealed to the public, which is commendable. However, instead of merely selecting one firm, it will be more persuasive if the results of all GLC were made public. Therefore, the government needs a comprehensive awareness on the importance of publicly disclosing its performance towards the people. This is because the public has a right to access public sector information since the public sector manages their money. Next, the issue of KPI is related to lack of clarity. The purpose of KPI is to enable quantifiable measurements that reflect the critical success factors of an organization. However, the issue lack of clarity in using KPI has been arising due to poor project performance. So looking at the PFI, or stand for Private Finance Initiative, lack of clarity and an effective KPI was identified as a core criticism towards the executions of PFI projects. The finding revealed that the current KPI do not match the criteria that have produced difficulties in measuring and monitoring the performance of PFI projects. This is because in PFI projects, existing goals KPI have been recognized as a factor that it is too general and difficult to comprehend. Therefore, better clarifications and understanding its importance to select and develop useful KPIs according to the criteria in choosing good indicator. The last issue of KPI is lack of managerial skills. The firm must ensure that the KPIs they create are reasonable, taking into account the fund available, the competency and capacities of their own employees. However, the problem arises when employees gripe and criticize the organization's unreasonable KPI implementations. This is due to the lack of management skills within the organizations. Unrealistic KPI frequently lead to workers sacrificing their health and leisure time to satisfy their employer demands, resulting in occupational stress. In the worst case situations, it could result in major legal consequences such as civil or criminal actions being brought against the personnel. What's more worrisome is that if workers are unable to meet such unreasonable KPIs, their performance will certainly decline, leading to a lack of public responsibility in fulfilling their duties. In addition, when it comes to the issue of unreasonable KPIs, Malaysia regulation remain moot. There are currently no clear laws on the subjects. Therefore, it is critical for the organizations to implement a more realistic and fair KPI in order to avoid creating a hostile atmosphere that could result in a worker filing a constructive dismissal claim.
Moving on to the solutions, although KPI has its own role in the public sector accountability, there are still some issues that occur in the implementation of this system. Therefore, in order to curb these issues from arising, there are some solutions that can be taken into account. The problem rose due to poor management performance due to a lack of clarity in the use of KPIs. In order to curb these issues, it is important to give a clear clarification in developing and selecting useful KPI in accordance with the criteria while choosing good indicators. A relevant KPI helps the organization and its stakeholders to see if one or more of the aims and objectives are achieved. This can be achieved by ensuring that the KPIs clearly supports the organization's goals and objectives. Clear linkage between the goals, objectives, and the KPI of the organization set a good understanding of how outputs connect to the achievement of these goals. Therefore, by setting out a comprehensible framework, it may provide better understanding towards any scheme. On top of all that, this KPI should be understood and valued within the organization. If the management as well as the staffs within the organization have a clear idea of how the activities contribute directly to the required results, KPI based on these results will be clearly interpreted and will give the organization a profitable way to assess the effectiveness of their activities. This can be achieved as KPIs are integrated in the organization's daily operations. For instance, the result of KPI should be reported internally as soon as possible to notify the management strategic and operational decisions and to help the operational staff assess the effectiveness of this decision. With this, it is easier for the staff to conduct any job performance if they are able to understand what KPI is all about.
Moving on to the recommendations, the first one is include public engagement. According to a literature, a successful method in developing KPIs should include public engagement. However, in many cases, the Malaysian public sector strategy does not solicit public feedback.
For example, instead of gathering input from stakeholders such as users, fund providers, customers, and trade unions, an external private consulting firm was consulted for KPI development for GLCs. The existing method of performance measurement development in Malaysia, which excludes civil society engagement, has the flaw of potentially failing to serve public's interests, who are the primary beneficiaries of the system. Meetings with stakeholders would be beneficial in order to get their feedback and integrate their expectations. Receiving input from the public may enhance public acceptance of the system and minimize the likelihood of the KPI or the system later becoming a source of contention, since it will provide them with the information they want. The second one is disclosure of KPI results to the public. In response to the new Premier pledge to make government more responsible and transparent, the system will be hampered if the KPI results are kept from public's view. It is argued that an accountable government should not be afraid of public criticism. KPI results should be disclosed and regarded as public documents that are easily accessible at low cost, or otherwise it will create an unwarranted public perception that the government pledge is merely rhetoric. According to anecdotal evidence, increased public documentation enabled to increase public trust towards the government's accountability. To conclude, it is nonetheless that there will be hiccups along the way throughout managing this system. Therefore, in order to curb those issues as well as enhancing the KPI performances in the public sector, there are strategies that the parties concerned could take that will lead Malaysian public sector to a new level of performance.
To conclude, the implementation of key performance indicator in the Malaysia public sector indeed had give a substantial impact toward the public sector performance and accountability. The Total Quality Management Performance Improvement Initiative as well as the KPI creation are some of the effort done with the objective to empower and enhance the performance-based culture and as the effort of continuous improvement on performance measurement as well as the accountability in the public sector. Although the KPI has certain issues and weaknesses that could lead to the failure of the objective, the government indeed had introduced a good move in empowering and increasing the awareness of accountability. Therefore, the issue that occur regarding on the KPI development practices and approach in public sector need to be addressed by the government to ensure the effectiveness, efficiency, and accountability of the government could be empowered. That is all from us. Thank you.